So to start programming, we first need to talk about variables. So what is a variable? And really plain and simple, name for a storage area in which we can put data. This means that in a variable we can store data and we can use a key to use this data in certain contexts. So how you could imagine this is that we have a certain value inside a certain box which we only can open with a certain key / name, how you want to call it. So the value could be hello world, just as we did in the last video, and the name could be hello text. What is this going to look like in code? In code we have a var keyword, which indicates that it's a variable. Then we have the name / key, and then we have an assignment operator, which is the same as an equal sign, and then the value of what we want to put in this variable. So in this case, hello world. And as you can see, don't forget the semicolon, because this is the end of the line and this is the command that we want to execute. If we now go back to our code and we have here the print and hello world, we can place this hello world inside a variable, just as I showed in the PowerPoint. So let's do that. We're going to create this value, hello text, and we're going to say hello world, exclamation mark, semicolon. As you can see, there are no errors, but what it shows us is a blue line under here. And what it says is the value of local variable hello text isn't used. That's because we didn't use this variable just yet, but it says, hey, if you're not going to use it, please delete it because it's unnecessary. So what we can do now is let's delete this. And we use now the hello text to delete these spaces, and as you can see, both errors are gone. And if we run now, we're still seeing hello world, but to show that it's actually working, we're going to type 2 exclamation marks behind it and press run, and now we have 3 exclamation marks. So that works pretty fine. What we also can do inside a variable is declare a number. So you can use var number and then just press 0. We don't need to put quotes around it because quotes is for text, and numbers you can just type the number itself. Press a semicolon and the red line will go away. And what we can do is also print this number. And if we run now, we should see 2 things inside our console, the hello world and the 0 that we put in here. We can also change the value that's inside a variable. So if we want to change the number from 0 to 5, we can use the key, which is number, and I can press now 5 and semicolon. We don't need to declare this var keyword again because the variable is already created. And when we create a variable, we have to define what kind of variable it is. We now use the var keyword, which is a form of implicit typing, which we're going to talk about in the next video. But if you already created the variable, you don't need to declare what it's going to be, of what type. So we are now able to use this number and then say it's 5, and we can print it out again. Run. And you can see that now this 5 also is put inside our console. Now what happens if I try to put a text inside a variable which was actually a number? Let's try that out. So we can type here a number and then we say maybe also the same 5, but now it's a text because we put it in quotes. And what it's going to say is a value of type string can be assigned to a variable of type int. So in this video we're going to play around with integers or numbers, and let's go straight back to our code. And what I'm going to do is actually delete this stuff, we're not going to use it, and I'm going to define some new variables. So I'm going to define that int a is 3 and the int b is 2. What we can do now is we can set a new variable with these numbers and use an operator on it. So we can add 2 numbers to each other, we can times it by each other, or we can subtract it by each other. So what we can do is we set int c is a plus 2. And if I run that, then you're not going to see anything because you still have to print it out, of course. So let's do that again. And as you can see, it says 5 because our a is 3 and we did a plus 2, which is 5. That's quite simple. So the next thing what we can do is we can also times it, or we can subtract from each other. We can also do a times c, and let's print those out and run the code and let's see what's happening. So a is 3, b is 2, c is a times 2, which is going to be 6, that's right. D is I minus b, which is 3 minus 2, is 1. And then we say a is 3 times c, which is 6, and that's going to be 18. So this way we can play around a little with numbers. So we have also the option to set a variable with something different, in which we can use its own value. So let's say that I want to set a with the value that's inside it plus 2. So what I can do is a plus 2. And I'm going to print that out and run. And as you can see, it says 5. This is easy way when you just want to higher up a variable in a certain case. But there's also a quicker annotation for this. So what we can do is we said a plus is 2, and what it's going to do now is going to take the number and plus it with 2, just as it did before, but this is the short syntax which is called. So this was a quick intro into numbers. In this video we're going to take a look at strings, as already mentioned. So we're going also straight back to our code. And what I'm going to do again is delete this code that's inside our main function. Let's define some new variables. So I'm going to use the string type, and I'm going to call it text A is, and I'm going to use my first name, and let's just call this variable first name. Maybe is that a little bit easier. So first name. And then I'm going to use another variable, which is going to be surname. And my name is Catherine Gould. And I missed the semicolon, so it's going to nag about it. And I'm going to console these both, which is actually print. In C# it's console log. So I'm going to print these to our console. We can now delete this library. So let's delete that. And let's press run, and it's going to print out Catherine Gould. Wait. It's taking a little bit longer than I expected, but yes, there it is. So now what are we going to do if we want to print out the full name? So what we can do is we define a new variable, which is full name, and I'm going to say first name plus surname. So what it's going to do is it's going to put this piece of text in front of this piece of text. So if we now press run, but first let's print that out. Yes, and run it. Then you can see that it put actually the text straight to my first name. So now instead of Catherine Gould. And we don't want that. And the way we can fix that is putting a space between these two values. So if I run it now again, then it should be written out the right way. So we can do this and for many variables, and this way you can create a whole piece of text. I wouldn't recommend that, but you can if you want to. And what we also can do to fix this is use string interpolation. And how this works is we can set a new variable. And I'm going to say it full name too. And we open up quotes and we use a $sign, and then we can say first name and then a space and then again a $sign and press a semicolon. So what's going to do now is it's going to take the text that we have here and it's going to print out first name at this position, then puts a space between it, and then going to print out surname in that position. So let's see if this is working. Then I have to type the name right, and let's press run. And as you can see, it's still working. So what we can do now is we can put text before it. So full name double dot, and then press run. And it should now write out full name double dot Cat van Gool. So that's really nice. And the plus or the addition operator, which is called, is actually the only operator you can use on a string. So you can't use a minus or a separator or the times sign. Only the plus operator is working. If you try it out, then you can see that first name is first name minus surname. Then it's going to say that that operator isn't defined for a string. So this way you know what you can use or not. And that was it for this video. So strings, quite short, but still handy. In this video we're going to take a look at string functions. And what I mean with string functions is that we can call a function on a string, a variable that we defined which is of type string. So let's go to our code. And we have got all these kind of strings here, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to type the variable, and I'm going to use the full name 2 for now, and type a dot. And if you type the dot, we can see what the options are, and with functions we can use, but also some variables, which is like the is empty, or the length, or hash code. I don't know where that is, but still it's available. So what we can do now is let's print out some lengths. So let's print out the length of the first name, dot length, semicolon, print out the length of the last name or the surname, and let's run it. So the first one is 3. So 1, 2, 3, and the next one is 8. So 1, 2, 3, 4. The space is also a character, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, which is 8. So there are many other things we can do, and this is one of the more interesting maybe, but also very simple. So we're going to take this full name 2, and we're going to say uppercase it. Okay, I did something wrong there, so dot, and let's go below. It's still uppercase, and these two brackets behind this means that it's a function but it has no input parameters. So if you click on it, you can see that it converts all characters in the string to uppercase. So let's run it, and as you can see, everything is written out in uppercase. But if I print out now the full name to itself, do you think it's uppercase or it's still the way it was? So let's check it out, let's run it. And as you can see, it's still the way it was before we used uppercase. And that's because this function doesn't set the value of our full name 2. It's just going to give us an uppercase representation of what's inside the full name 2. You could do the same with to lowercase, and press run, and as you can see now these F, C and G are gone and are lowercase. So these are the simpler functions. We've also some others which are a little bit more difficult and use some inputs. So what we can do is we take a look at what we get, and let's take a look at index of. So it explains a little here. So it returns the position of the first match of pattern in the string starting at the start. So what this means is with these block brackets, they say that the input isn't needed. So we could only give in the first input, which is the pattern, or it's just a string. But we could also give in a new regex, and this is something different which is outside the scope of this tutorial. But still, if you want to look at it, then you can use regex or RAG, just like here, the first 5 characters here. So what we can do now is we have here a full name too, and we know that there's somewhere van inside. So let's take van, and if we run it now, you have to put that inside quotes. Now it's fine. If we run it now, we're going to get back the first index of this van. So this means that this v is on index 14. So let's check it out. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So how does this work? The index is at 14 because the first index is 0. So you have to subtract 1 from the length if you want to know the index of the last character. So let's take a look at a function which is a little bit more difficult, which actually takes 2 inputs, which is the full name and the substring. So we have a start index and end index, and what the substring does is, if we click on here, is we can get a certain piece of text out of our string which is between certain indexes. So as you can see, we have a start index which is not optional, and we have our end index which is. So if we put now here from 5, it's going to give us back the string which is after index 5. So let's run it, and it says that aim ... gets my goal. So let's check it out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's going to give back everything behind the 5th index, included with the 5th index itself, which is the A. So that works fine. But if you now say 8, so comma 8, which is for the end index, then we should get back a tinier string, which is the just aim. So these are string functions. If you want to look it up, you can also go here, Dart class string, and then you get the string class Dart code library. And Dart code library is the one library you are always using. So this Dartpad is also using the Dart code library, but because it's mandatory, it's not an import or anything. So here you can see the string class and some examples, but also we have constructors, which we're going to talk about later on in this tutorial. We have properties, and also these methods or functions, which you want to call it. And that's it for this lesson. The next we're going to look at are booleans. In this video we're going to talk about booleans. Well, as already mentioned, a boolean can only have 2 values, true or false, so let's create one. We start with a bool keyword, which is short for boolean, and I'm just going to call mine boolean, and then I'm going to set it with true, and I can set it with false, and we can print it out to our console. And we run that, and only false to be shown. Okay, alright. But where booleans come to shine is when we use relational operators. And the way we can use relational operators is to check if something is the same as another thing. And I'm going to show you how this works. If we define an int a, which is 5, and then an int b, which is 4, we can check if these two are the same or different. And the way we can do that is by saying boolean is a is this b. And if you click on this operator, you can also see the documentation, and what it does is test whether this value is numerically equal to other. And what it means is this value is the one that's before the is operator with the other, which is the b. If I print this out to the console, we should see that it's going to be false. And that's because 5 is not 4, which is kind of obvious, but still. Let's see what the answer is, and it's going to be false. What we can also do is we can check if these two are different from each other. And we can do that by using this exclamation mark and then an is sign instead of double is. If we now print it to our console, boolean, semicolon, and then run, you will see that's true. There's also different operators, just like we are used to use in maths, which are the lower and the greater than operators. So let's use these both. That should be a B. And we can also say higher and equals than to, and then print it out, semicolon. And if you now run this, then we can check what the answers are. So the first one is false, and that's because the boolean is just set to false. The second one is false because 5 is not 4, so boolean is false. The third one is true because indeed 5 is not 4, so it's going to be true. Then the fourth one is going to be false because 5 is not lower than 4. And the fifth one is true because 5 is greater than or equal to b. What we can also do is check if two texts are the same. So the way we can do that is by just doing the same as the numbers. We take two texts, hi, and text B is hi. And we try and compare these to each other by using the is operator. And we print it out. But these two are actually the same, but they are still different because I use the uppercase here instead of a lowercase. So we expect that it's going to be false, and this is true. I mean that it's false. Sometimes you want to check multiple things at the same time. So if A and B are the same, then B and C should not be the same. And we can do that by defining another number. And we can say here, boolean is A is unequal to B, and B is equal to C. What now happens is that we're going to check if A is unequal to B, and we're going to check if B is equal to C. If that's the case, then we are going to say true. But if one of these two is not true, then it's going to be false. If you run it, then you can see that the last value is true. And to show you that the statement is false when one of two is false, I'm going to say that A is unequal to B and B is equal to A, which will always be false because A can be unequal and at the same time be equal to B. So if you run that now, you're going to see that it's false. Sometimes we want to check if one of the two statements is true, and we can use this by an OR operator. So it now says if one of these two is true, or they both are true, then it's going to be true. If they both false, then we're going to print out false. So when I run this now, you can see that's true again. In the next video, we're going to look at if statements where relational operators will really shine.
Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe.